Hey, this is Pastor Jamie Tickle at First Baptist Church in Cherokee, Kansas. Glad you're along for this short little broadcast on YouTube. We're just excited to be able to give you an opportunity to listen to a little bit of what we do here at Cherokee. We just hope that you enjoy this, that it's a blessing to you. And feel free to leave a comment. Feel free to get in touch with our church via the website, www.cherokeechurch.org. From our website, you can listen to entire unedited messages. And if you're in our listening audience, you can tune into 103.5 FM for Truth for Today that plays every Sunday morning at 8:30. God bless. This morning we look at no one but Jesus can give true peace. No one but Jesus can give true peace. And normally we keep our texts that we study pretty simple. We try to keep them short and small. But this morning I do want to read all 20 verses, the first 20 verses of the Gospel of Mark chapter 5. So if you would just follow me, I want to read these 20 verses because we're going to be dealing with all of these verses really in this story this morning. It says in verse number 1, "Then they came to the other side of the sea, to the country of the Gadarenes. And when he had come out of the boat, immediately there met him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit, who had his dwelling among the tombs. And no one could bind him, not even with chains, because he had often been bound with shackles and chains. And the chains had been pulled apart by him, and the shackles broken in pieces. Neither could anyone tame him. And always, night and day, he was in the mountains and in the tombs, crying out and cutting himself with stones. And when he saw Jesus from afar, he ran and worshipped him. And he cried out with a loud voice and said, 'What have I to do with you, Jesus, the Most High God? I implore you by God that you do not torment me.' For he said to him, 'Come out of the man, unclean spirit.' Then he asked him, 'What is your name?' And he answered, saying, 'My name is Legion, for we are many.' Also he begged him earnestly that he would not send him out of the country. Now a large herd of swine was feeding there near the mountains. So all the demons begged him, saying, 'Send us to the swine, that we may enter them.' And at once Jesus gave them permission. Then the unclean spirits went out and entered the swine, and there were about 2,000. And the herd ran violently down the steep place into the sea, and drowned in it. So those who fed the swine fled, and they told it in the city and the country. And they went out to see that it was indeed how it happened. Then they came to Jesus and saw the one who had been demon-possessed in the legion. And they saw him sitting and clothed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. And those who saw it told them how it happened to him who had been demon-possessed and about the swine. Then they began to plead with Jesus to depart from their region. And when he had gotten into the boat, he who had been demon-possessed begged him that he might be with him. However, Jesus did not permit him, but said to him, 'Go home to your friends and tell them what great things the Lord has done for you, and how he has had compassion on you.' And he departed and began to proclaim in Decapolis all that Jesus had done for him, and all marveled." The story is told in the Gospel of Matthew chapter 8 and Luke chapter 8. And Matthew and Luke, though similar, are a little bit different, and simply because of the size and the scope of Mark's account, I wanted to read out of it this morning. But I do want to bring to your attention, because I know this morning, as you are reading this text, some of you are looking in your cross-references and you're going to go to Matthew chapter 8, you're going to go to Luke chapter 8, or maybe even some of you may write it down and study it greater today or later this week. But I want to just let you know a couple of things and share with you some of the differences that Matthew has with Mark and that Luke's account has with Mark. Though they're rather small, I think they still need to be brought out. One of those is in Matthew chapter 8. Matthew records the same story, we believe, but he records it a little differently. Where Mark saw one man come and that was demon-possessed and come to Jesus, Matthew records two. Now, this doesn't mean that there's a contradiction of Scripture. This doesn't mean that one is necessarily proving the other one wrong. Let me give you an example. If Monday I go to the bank, and the bank, as I'm there at the bank, someone comes up and it's robbed while I'm there. If I'm at the bank and it's getting robbed and I see a person with a gun, and I fill out my police report and say, I saw a man with a gun, he was right beside me, then that's true. That's what I saw. I saw a man with a gun, and I fill out the report that that's what I saw. However, on the other side of the bank, someone saw another person with another gun. There were 2 people there with guns, yet I only saw one. From Matthew's account, he saw 2 people who were demon-possessed who came to Jesus, while Mark, on the other hand, only saw one, or the account that Mark was told was only reported to him by a person who saw one. These don't contradict each other. They're actually very congruent. They go together. They walk in line together. That's just the account from 2 different perspectives. Now, that's Matthew's account. Matthew saw 2 demon-possessed people. Now, the main difference that Luke has with Mark is really a small one. It's minute. But it does play a role in one of the subpoints of our message this morning, so I do want to be sure that we cover it. If you remember in that story that I read to you out of Mark's account, it said that when the villagers came back, they saw that the man who was demon-possessed was sitting, clothed, in his right mind. When we read Mark's account and read that Mark says he was clothed, what does that tell us about his previous clothing appearance? It tells us he wasn't wearing clothes. And I just wanted to bring that out because Luke brings that out. When Luke's description of this event, when this guy comes out, he's naked. So you might lose that if we don't think about it too much. And because that is a sub-point, and we do pause to talk a little bit about the significance of him being naked before and clothed later, I wanted to be sure and bring that out. Now, of course, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, there's a few differences. The size of the description is a little different. The detail is a little different. But for the most part, Mark is the most comprehensive. So I want us to see what holds all this together. What is that one word that we could grab a hold to this morning in order to teach this story? All these 20 verses. What can we stand to gain from this story? And it's this, is that Jesus is the only one. No one but Jesus can give true peace. No one but Jesus can give true peace. So out of all of the different lenses by which we could look at this verse, out of all of the lenses by which we could study, and out of all the outlines that we could do in order to unpack the awesome truths that we find in this, I want us to emphasize peace. I want us to look at the peace that the demoniac had after Christ. I want us to look how he was void of peace before Jesus. So if you will, if you're taking notes this morning, first thing you want to write down, you'll see it up on the screen, was that we're going to study the need for peace. This demoniac, this man that was possessed with these legions of demons, had a need for peace. Go with me, if you would, verse 2. It says, "And when he had come out of the boat, he being Jesus, immediately there met him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit, who had his dwelling among the tombs, and no one could bind him, not even with chains." If you notice verse 4, it says, "Because he had often been bound with shackles and chains, and the chains had been pulled apart by him, and the shackles broken in pieces, so that no one could tame him." If we look at this man's need for peace, we have to understand that he was not at peace with the other people that lived in that region. There was friction between them. Now, let me just say this, that our relationship with God is a core relationship. It is a foundational relationship. It is the relationship by which other relationships rely on. It is the relationship, if it is foundational, it is the relationship by which the health of other relationships are dependent upon. Let me give you an example. If my role in my marriage to my wife is to love her as Christ loved the church and gave Himself for her, then that means I should be a person who has recognized the love that Jesus has shed abroad for me. And I should have experienced that. Because if I have not experienced that love of Jesus Christ, that sacrificial serving love for me, then I am going to be unable to fully demonstrate that to the best of my ability to my wife. So if my relationship with Christ is not right, it is going to affect my marriage relationship. The same thing with Bree. If her role is to honor and reverence me as unto the Lord, if she's not honoring and reverencing the Lord in the way that He deserves, how is she ever going to show me that honor and reverence? Thank you for taking the time to listen to our short little broadcast here on YouTube. We hope that it's been a blessing for you.